Dustin. Woo! I don't know what just happened there. I don't know. Right before we started the Because Cannabis podcast, what my face looks like, I'm struggling to get some oxygen right now. I feel like I'm coughing. I don't know what could have happened, Dustin, while we were waiting for the show. Welcome, everyone, to Because Cannabis. I'm putting the cannabis in Because Cannabis in today's episode of Because Cannabis. You got to do the intro, man.
Welcome to Because Cannabis, your favorite weekly show.
Just straight out favorite weekly show.
Yeah, I think so.
Not even a niche.
Market. Oh no, it's your favorite weekly show. Oh yeah.
Every Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. Thursdays on Spotify with video and anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts. My name is B.C. Wehman. That's Dustin Kava. We're here with Because Cannabis, brought to you by Wayward Media, wayward.media on the interwebs. Welcome to the show. New Lester pod, Dustin. What are you gonna do? Had to try it out. Shout out. Got some lemon drip up in this. It's another weekly show, another brand new episode. We're excited to be speaking with you today. We've got some great news and headlines that we're going to be covering today on the Because Cannabis podcast. Do you get into the news, Dustin? Like the cannabis industry, right? In general, just in the world. Here's something I thought about. I feel like I'm at an age where I don't really get into daily updates of pretty much anything, right? We live in a world where social media is driven on the second, the minute update. And that typically tends to be a younger crowd or older people with nothing better to do. And then you have older folks, I'll put a little older than myself, who get into maybe watching one news feed. Pick your channel, tends to gravitate towards a Fox News or something, but you watch the news, right? You don't so much catch up with whatever's happening. You watch what the show is telling you is happening. Or you scroll the internet and you surf, and you have like 19 browser tabs open. You got all these notification feeds and whatnot, and you're just getting drip fed constant news. I find myself in a moment where I just don't give a fuck.
You are speaking to the wrong guy about this.
I know.
I never give a fuck. I don't want to call it disillusioned, but there is a part of me that's like, you know what? After fucking 18 years of being in this fucking industry, I have every right to call bullshit on everything I see.
There is some bullshit happening in the world today. In the cannabis industry, we got some great stuff we'll talk about. Let's get right into it, Dustin. Let's get right into some news and headlines that are happening this week. Couple of things, right? We have had multiple conversations throughout this show. Thank you, everyone that has subscribed. Do us a favor. Hit the subscription, hit the notifications. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a follow. That really helps out the show, helps more folks find the show. We definitely appreciate your support in doing that. We've talked to a lot of people who have had a lot of experiences in dealing with staffs, in working with people. And we know from our experience that in this industry, there are a lot of brilliant people who know a ton about the plant, and they're really good at managing every anode and node and genetic strain. Like they get into that, and having the management of the plants is good. Having an understanding of, business aspects as far as paying your bills, which no one's doing. I shouldn't have said that. No one's doing, and things like that. But the staff, the human component, which is something that everyone talks about being so important. I don't know, man. I don't know. I've been in a lot of meetings with cannabis companies. We don't talk a lot about staff. We don't talk about morale. We don't talk about pizza parties. We don't talk about any of those things. We talk a lot about numbers, dollar bills, y'all. We talk a lot about data points and statistics. Good stuff, right? But never anyone's like, hey, man, you happy? How you feeling, bro? What's up?
I mean, that seems like...
You like what your job is?
I laugh at the market really, when we talked to Andrew D'Angelo, he always said something that like kind of stuck with me for a while, where he's like, the low-hanging fruit is gone out of the industry, and so, but then when I think about these individual smaller cannabis companies, the low-hanging fruit within the organization right now is staff morale. And
Oh.
and why aren't they gravitating towards, creating a more inclusive or beneficial environment for their staff to increase that loyalty?
It's an interesting situation. I don't know if there's a right answer. I think, like anything in the world, when business has cuts to make, staff is always the first to go. No one ever has big
I always
articles.
saw marketing as the first to go. Staff should be the last thing to go
Maybe
because they are
marketing
your
does go.
largest asset, period.
Maybe marketing does go, but it doesn't get a headline. Maybe that's why. Maybe staff being cut. No one's ever like, Amazon slashed their marketing budget 30%. Outrage. Like, no one ever gives a shit, right? But there's the human when Fred gets let go, and it's usually when they slash the marketing budget 30%. That's like Fred and Alice. I mean, that's their salary. That's what they're slashing when they slash the budget. So ultimately, it comes back to the humans. But you are seeing disillusionment in this industry. We talk about it a lot. The amount of staff that is hopping from place to place. The average tenure, it feels like, for a brand ambassador in the cannabis industry is about 3.5 weeks. But don't worry, 2 weeks from now, you're going to have a brand new one with a brand new company, which you'll probably work for. Maybe you'll like 2 months this time, and then you'll get let go. But don't worry. There's another company right down the road who's going to hire you that moment for as long as you're willing to keep driving insane amount of distances for low pay. We'll hook you up. We'll get you where you need to know. It happens. It happens. And then what happens, Dustin, is people get pissed off. And so they look at what was in the United States for the longest time, the avenue that you took. If you were unhappy with your staffing situation, if you felt like your bosses mistreated you, right? What did you do? You unionized, right? That's what you ended up doing. You went all unionized. And so we saw a wave of that, especially during the COVID era. Maybe people were bored. Maybe they were unhappy with some of the weird situations with working, but we saw multiple people and companies begin to unionize during COVID. There was a big push for that. And then what's happening now? Two things. Because of the massive amount of multiple state operators in their ownership exchanges, when they buy a new property, when they acquire a license, the union agreement is null and void. Did you know that? I learned that recently. When they purchase a thing, so for example, Strawberry Fields in Ohio became the first Ohio dispensary to unionize. Someone came in, big company, bought them over. When a license is transferred, those agreements, null and void, whoosh, that's what happens. So you can work your ass off to get unionized at your local ma and pa dispensary owned by a small company, or even they have a couple chains in the state. But as soon as big boy, you know who they are, they come rolling in and acquire that license, out the window, man. I learned that. That blew my mind a little bit.
That kind of does blow my mind because it shows what they're buying the company for. Usually you're buying the company for how it's ran, all the staff that they have, the type of etiquette or work environment that they have cultivated. You usually don't want to come in and change those particular things because it's obviously worked for the company. It's why you're buying them. In the cannabis industry, it's all about that license, and that's all that they give a damn. They don't really care about acquiring anything else. They just don't give a damn. They have no problem shutting down a store, or moving it, or changing buildings, or getting rid of all the staff entirely because now they have so many duplicates with their larger entity. The marketing staff. Do we need 2 marketing teams working on something? Probably not. You could probably add an extra brand to an original marketing team from the big MSO.
Battle to the death. They have to fight it out, duke it out, battle royale style in that area. Well, here's what's happened, Dustin. So either that happens, and so they get a new license, something like that happens, and then they're able to have that null and void, or the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I don't know how you feel about unions. That's up to you. Yeah, it's a great pun, right? I was waiting like literally how long we into the show? 10 minutes, 30 seconds to drop that one. So Cresco Labs in Massachusetts fought hard to get their union set up during the COVID era. And their first contract was about to expire in June. It would have been essentially a 3-year contract that they signed to be part of the United Food and Commercial Workers in the state of Massachusetts. the vote came back up to re-up, so to speak, the contract. And they're like, nah, bro, not feeling it. Basically, what they're saying is they had 40 months worth of dues, and they didn't feel like their output, what they were getting from the union, was not that good. Now,
that is so crazy. Okay,
right?
so $480 a year it's costing them to be a part of the union,
Correct.
which is fine to a low paid.
That's not a terrible fee, right? And
no, not if they're
more
fighting for
Starbucks.
higher wages. You get $1 extra an hour wage from that. You just paid for your dues for the year, you know, I guess, and more. There's a part of me that says when you're paying for shit when shit hits the fan, not necessarily, you know, I don't, when things are good and great. It just seems like it doesn't take much to have these $40 union fees be
well, I think the turnover
beneficial.
rate and the average expected tenure, because it's so slow and they know that they can get a job at somewhere else. So it's very in the now, right? It feels very young to say it's about the short term, but look at their point saying basically wage increases weren't happening as promised. That could be a fair point. It's hard to say that. Worse benefits than in the union than what the larger company was offering. So you're probably going to have higher premiums. You're probably paying more out of pocket, you know, that kind of stuff in there. So I thought that was interesting, but it actually brings a point. And there's a follow-up article that MJ Biz Daily, both these articles are from mjbizdaily.com. So that article came out a couple weeks ago where they talked about Cresco, and then they made a big article. They just put out a big, Chris Roberts put out a big report just a couple of days ago, taking a look at multiple situations where this is happening, multiple situations where during the COVID era, a lot of cannabis companies and people got together and unionized their facilities. And now as these contracts are coming up, the 3-year contracts, they're like, not feeling it. But I think what's happening, and I want to point this out a lot, and they're in Ohio, you know, we've met the, the Cannabis Workers Union, the local here in Ohio. I think they're ending up in both states, in Illinois and in Massachusetts. They ended up in the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. And I think that's an issue. So 2 things. Agricultural doesn't have a union. Right. The farmers got exploited in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And there's a part in this article, and we'll link it to there, where they basically said, look, farm workers, you're fucked. You don't get to unionize whether you like it or not. We're not going to allow that to happen. So there is no agricultural act. Here they talked about it and exempted from the 1935 National Labor Relations Act, that they can't do it unless there is a state law exemption, which there isn't, because no state was like, yeah, you can have better rights, employees. No one's ever fighting for the rights of employees on a state level as much as they say they are. So what you're seeing is companies aren't doing this. They're not getting into it, but they're in the wrong union. I think they're in this wrong union, and they've got to be very low. If you're in a state like Illinois, you have the food and commercial workers. You're covering like Airmark, right? The stadium employees that are 5,000 employees that work in Soldier Field, that work in the United Center in downtown Chicago. And then you have 10 employees at Joe's Weed Shop. Like, they're so low on your priority chart that I feel like they don't have this power that a large, there's large grocery stores.
And that's why I'm really surprised about the benefits and stuff. You know, the pooling of benefits seems to make sense if a 10-person workforce is pooling with a 6,000 person workforce. I would think that their benefits would be much cheaper. Yes. So it's a very surprising thing for me to hear. I guess I truly believe that employees in this industry right now are being exploited.
Yeah, I don't think that's a doubt.
And so I have a hard time saying to argue against a union in this industry off the rip because of that, because of the over exploitation of it. Does that mean that we need to set up our own union? That, again, Ohio's market is not very big. What do we got? 75 licenses? 100 licenses at the most?
There's like 130 dispensaries. There's like 30 cultivators and 40 processors, but a lot of those processors are.
Okay, so what are we looking at? 2,000 fucking people who work in the industry?
Yeah, I'd say less than 5. Probably 4,000 to 5,000 total human beings in Ohio that work legitimately day to day in a plant touching kind of vibe. And that may be a high estimate. And not just because of the Lester pod that I hit before the show. Just like a high number estimate. It's interesting. There's another cool part about this. Herbology, which was in Newark, which got bought over by Curaleaf.
the Curaleaf was going to work with them because they've dealt with this in other states, and they were like, nah, we're done, especially when Curaleaf rolls in with their multi-state, kind of programs. So I think you're seeing a lot of this. I don't know if this is a younger school of thought. I don't know if it was a younger school of thought to get excited about the potential of a union and then not realize all that comes with it. I'm not sure, but I don't think, and we don't hear as much. There was really big news and stories during the COVID era, 20, 21, 22, about the unionization of cannabis. And it feels like, as a whole, I mean, and obviously the cannabis companies have fought this, but it feels like as a whole, the workers might be fighting it too. They might not be feeling it. Do you think that's good? That's bad? I mean, it feels weird that they're not.
The only reason to fight it is not necessarily. I feel like they fight it because they know upper management hates it, and to be arguing for a union while upper management is making
the kid-parent thing.
That's exactly it. I think that's
shit.
So I'm not sure that I would go against my boss when I'm hoping to get that raise coming up in the future and blah, blah, blah. I don't think that in the moment, in the immediate, it's probably not a great thing to be asking for something like that, but it never has been. I can never think of any organization where the question to go union has been met with upper management in a way that's like, hell yeah, we encourage you to have this conversation. You know what? Why don't all of you have a lunch and tell each other what you're making every day? Like, let's talk salaries open and honestly. They're just not fucking doing that. So, we live in that very hush hush. Oh, don't tell anybody you're making $3 more than Bob across
which
the
is
hall.
all technically illegal, but then you're supposed to not do it. And I actually get that part of it, but it is funny how much people have been. I have done this, Dustin. I think I fired someone for doing that.
Yeah, see, that's fucking crazy.
But I was a younger, ill-informed. I would totally, dude, I would be that guy right now, by the way. But then I wouldn't, because if I run the business, I know the bottom line, and now all I see is dollars. So that becomes, it's a tough road to hoe.
That's what keeps people making shit money in an industry that's making shit money. Again, okay, so what is our, is cannabis more profitable than a food industry company, than a restaurant? Restaurants make between 1% and 2%. So is cannabis making 1% to 2% profit?
Possibly. No, because no one's paying their bills. No one's making money. We know no one's making. There's only who's making profit? A few human beings. Cannabis, we know this, and we got some stuff we'll talk about in a future episode about some drama happening here in Ohio. Cannabis is working on kind of a flowing money flow issue, right? We actually, one of those conversations we had with Andrew D'Angelo, learning how in the early days Harborside paid cash, right? They decided to say, screw the IRS, we're going to pay our suppliers. That's not how it works right now. It's not how it works. And all this hope that maybe, rescheduling to Schedule 3 makes you have cheaper tax bills, that's years away. That's not happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're stuck in this boat where you have money that has to be cut. Vendors aren't paying each other like responsible business owners should be. Why the fuck are we
so excited about adult use? Why are we excited about the inflow of another 100,000 people that want to buy cannabis in the state if at the end of the day, it boils down to the same fucking nonsense of you're not making any money? Why are they, what does it matter if you're consistently in the zero? Why do you care about adding all this extra cash flow when you're going to have all this extra staff that's going to be needed to facilitate this extra?
It's like pulling a handle on a slot machine. It's probably not going to go the way you want, but gosh darn it, you hope it does. You hope. I'm telling you, that's what this industry is like. It's like playing the slots. It's not even like Vegas, right? It's not even like a blackjacks. I mean, there's some strategy and stuff involved here, but with the adult use, this is how I've come to equate it. You pull the slot machine handle, and it's probably not going to work out.
And is it only the exit? Is it that your exit valuation is higher?
While someone nails it. And you think that it's the chase. Why do people keep gambling when they lose money? It's the chase of next hand. It's the next hand. I didn't make it in medical, so adult use is going to work. Or maybe, Dustin, maybe the case is if you didn't make it in medical and you're not going to make it in adult use, maybe you make it in mushrooms.
Oh my gosh.
That's what's happening now, Dustin. I have a question. There's a great article on ganjapreneur.com. Graham Abbott here talking about how some Oregon cannabis companies, Oregon, never Oregon, I have learned. Oregon, Kaya Holdings, a big multi-conglomerate of weed companies that's probably located somewhere off seas or something at this point, has now decided, I don't know, maybe they're legit. I just have so disillusioned, as we say, has decided to get into the internationally licensed cannabis company, Kaya Holdings. That's like something Jason Statham's going to attack at ground level, and that's like the master company, Kaya Holdings. Shout out to the beekeeper, by the way, worth the 99 cents I rented from Amazon Prime. He's a beekeeper and a badass. Duh. Like, if you didn't know that was about to happen. So we're seeing this more and more. Cannabis companies looking at the future, looking into psychedelics, looking into mushrooms, looking into other types of psychotropic aspects. But here's my question to you, Dustin. Not so much what is Kaya Holda doing. Is a cannabis company getting into the psychedelic space the same argument as a beer company getting into the weed space? You do this thing that makes people feel a certain way. You've got some tried and true experience in this thing, and you have some startups who say, we're going to do it for the love of the plant. And you're like, yeah, I get it, bro, but I've been there, and it's about money. Is the cannabis companies moving into the psychedelic space, which is the next big thing, according to some folks? Is that cool? Are we mad at that? Do you think that's a big deal? Am I overthinking
Companies, no. How about this? Companies, yes. Individuals, no. We've learned that the legacy market in this industry has been pushed out. And I do believe that as a legacy person, this may be your only option to finally get some other dues that you have been dude. If that makes any sense.
By the way, Kaya Holdings describes themselves as a mind care.
Oh, great for them. I'm sure corporate fucking not like that fucking, a mind care company. It sounds like this fucking CEO is blowing a fucking line of coke on some fucking stripper.
Oh, now we're just getting accusatory. We were fun. Now Dustin's going brutal. So Oregon is the only state that has a therapeutic use of psilocybin, right, in mushrooms, and we know that. So you're seeing some companies get into it. It's more than likely, just like Washington and Colorado and in California with medical, it's more than likely that some states will legalize psilocybin, and psychedelics have a much harder battle to get full accepted.
We think, but they also have a way higher press than cannabis has. I have not seen a psychedelics caused my son to go crazy article fucking ever. I always hear, oh my gosh, it helps with depression.
Is it too small that no one cares about it?
I think
it's so hard. It's way harder to get.
It's the same thing as ketamine. I mean, it's following the same. I'm surprised that these guys are getting into psychedelics before they're getting into the ketamine clinics that are popping up all over the country as it is. Yeah. And I never thought in my entire lifetime that I would ever see an upheaval of cannabis or ketamine usage in the way it is. I just never in my life thought that. So, and I also thought that I would have seen more MDMA fucking pushing than psychedelics pushing for the wellness market as well. So I'm constantly, surprised about all this. Am I actually surprised that they're shooting for this? No, the SOPs are very similar. The way that they're going to operate is very similar. But do I think that this is finally the profitable industry that these large MSOs have been, hoping for? Is it that there's no 280E when it comes to psychedelics? I don't know. But
I think the real question is, I don't know. I don't know if anyone really is that upset about it. But I think that's a big part of it. I think people are trying to figure out what they're doing in the industry, and is mushrooms going to be the next big thing? I don't know. Here's the real question. Here's the real question, Dustin. When you go to the Sacred Mushroom, located on the top floor of the historic Falcon building,
doing my journaling
in downtown, what are you going to do first? Right? Are you going to go to the indoor garden, yoga? Are you going to journal, or maybe? Which one of those things? By the way, they have a room to roam philosophy. You can do all of those in one crazy wicked trip.
I fucking hate these people. I hate them. I can't even, dude. I do not want to be the non-positive person on this show, but I fucking hate these people. Have you ever been to a fucking room with a room full of people doing mushrooms? It's fucking dumb.
No,
it is
I'm
so
not.
goddamn
I'd have to have a private
dumb.
room.
I cannot do. And here's the thing: I have had
Optional
mushroom.
private rooms.
I do
Optional.
believe in the usage of psychedelics in order to help treat certain things. I have noticed in the past with me that I've had less depression shit when I use psychedelics once or twice a year. It does. I have noticed a big difference. But do I think this is a change that needs to be propagated throughout a whole industry and I need a goddamn corner store to buy my mushrooms legally? Fuck off. Fuck off. The last thing I want to do is hang out with some fucking guy who's tripping all the time. That is like literally the lowest priority on my list. That's worse than, I don't know, an IRS agent or something. I'd rather hang out with a tax accountant.
Slander. You, sir, are worse than a representative of the United States government who collects taxes that have been around since a long of time. It's an interesting situation that we find ourselves in. Do you think if we could travel back in time that there would be two people on the because cannabis version of this when cannabis was getting legal that would say the same things about weed though? Like, do you think there'd be the same basic argument 15, 20 years ago? Like, I don't want to go to a store where they have all sorts of strains available to me and all sorts of options. I just want
No, because cannabis usage is a very daily usage thing. Mushrooms shouldn't fucking be. Like, if I'm going to a store once a year to buy my mushrooms before my camping trip, you know, like, fucking,
that's a good point.
It's a total different thing. Like, again, I don't want even the whole microdosing of like, oh my God, it's so productive, bro. I'm just so fucking awesome on my microdose. God damn it.
Has anyone who looked as much as a hippie like you ever been so anti-hippie in their phrasing at this very moment? Like, no one, you are like betraying those of similar appearance and ilk to you right now. Those of you who refuse to shave and cut your hair, who are like all in. You're like making fun of them in your hippie voice.
I have literally every industry I've ever fucking catered to has catered to the looks, and I am so fucking sick of it. I'm so sick of it. I do not want it. What's next? What are we going to start selling fucking balloons in the parking lot? Fucking,
I hope so.
$5 a balloon, bro. Let's fucking have a good time.
I think we should legalize nitrous, and we should just start like some dudes on the corner with like little whipped cream cans, and it's just deflated, wimpy whipped cream laying all over the streets. They won't be complaining about the smell of weed in New York. They'll be complaining about all the empty cans of nitrous. I don't know, Dustin. It's an interesting world that the cannabis space finds itself in. We have done 2 straight years of this show, and we've learned a lot and been inspired. But I also think we might be getting a little jaded from this stuff. We'll find out. You'll find out because you're going to subscribe and you're going to check out a brand new episode of the Because Cannabis podcast every single Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. on YouTube, every Thursday on Spotify and anywhere that you listen to audio podcasts. Make sure you give us a subscription. Hit us up on MeetWN. Check out the links to those articles, the MJ Biz Daily and the Ganjapreneur. What are your thoughts? Leave it in the comments below. What do you think about unions in the cannabis industry? And what do you think about weed and mushrooms? Do they go together like PB&J? Should they be kept separate behind a glass case locked up at CVS? I don't know the answer, Dustin Kava. I know it's a weird world that we live in, and I know that no matter how bad I don't want to, we will be here every single Wednesday, 4:20 p.m. on YouTube. See you guys next week.
What a great show. Appreciate you all.